that is driving the financial institutions crazy. So most of them have requested an extension for 30 days. It was due February 29th until March 29th to do the 1099, the 1099-Bs involving the sale of stock.
So that gives you 15 days to do your taxes if you're waiting for your report, your 1099?
There's plenty of time for you, Rick.
He doesn't do his taxes.
That's what I mean.
Extension.
One phone call. But, so, you're going to find it's going to be a very late tax season for most people.
Wow. Now, unlike baseball, the rules and taxes change all the time.
Well, they certainly do. And with tax season comes scams and frauds, and unfortunately there are a lot of unsavory characters out there trying to make a dishonest dollar as quickly as possible. And this is an excellent opportunity for the unsuspecting taxpayer to lose money.
Like what kind of...
How am I going to lose money?
What are you talking about?
Well, let's talk about a situation, Jeffrey, that you may get. You may get a notice from the IRS that you missed the W-2. Well, you may have missed a W-2 for a company you didn't work for. Okay. You may get a notice that you have already filed a tax return. I've seen this before. You may have, I'm sure, Jeffrey, knowing you, you have a very complicated tax return that probably looks like Mitt Romney's phone book. You may get a
Your mouth to God's ears.
letter from the IRS that, oh, we already processed your 1040A, which is the simple return, and we already issued you a refund. This is very, very common, especially with all the information that is available on the internet. Now, what do you do if you are a victim of tax fraud, income tax fraud? The IRS has a hotline, which is 1-800-908-4490.
So you call and report?
You call them. The IRS has never really formalized this until this year, Rick, because it's really, really endemic at this point.
Because, I mean, once you give your information up, then that's it.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's one type of fraud, which unfortunately is very, very common. Another type of fraud is if you get a notice on the internet from the IRS saying, you know, you have a refund you haven't claimed, okay? But there's also a penalty, so could you send a check to a certain address, and you see there's an IRS logo on it and everything. It looks very official. I don't know if you've seen them before.
I haven't, but I've gotten a lot of relatives that died, and I have big inheritances overseas that I've never heard of.
Yeah, well, this is the same deal.
All the time.
We got a notice from the town of Barnstable, my wife, in terms of our tax assessment of our house in Hyannis, and they asked for a full accounting of all the contents of the house, including jewelry, TVs, cutlery. Does that sound normal to you?
Well, you have a rental house down there, I assume.
No, we own the house.
No, you own the house, but it's a second house, and a lot of towns do that.
Wow.
What if you don't
That's
respond?
unfortunately not uncommon. The jewelry, I don't know about. It's usually the personal property.
Right.
So the IRS, just getting back to what I was saying, the IRS will never contact you via the internet. Never. Okay? So if you get any type of correspondence from the IRS on the internet, it's fraud.
I always assume it's spam.
Well, it's always spam.
Right,
okay?
and I've learned a long time ago, don't open up something unless I know exactly who it's coming from, or I might lose my laptop.
Right, because a lot of people...
It'll happen to all of us, you're right.
Right.
A lot of people will see the IRS logo and they'll get concerned.
You get nervous.
Right.
Well, you assume it. That's why it's a good scam.
Right. And most people, if you get a notice from the IRS, what would be the first thing you do? You write the check because you don't want the IRS, the big bad IRS, come knocking on your door.
Right.
Okay, well, that's a big problem.
But
a lot of people are falling for that, especially the elderly.
If you write a check to the IRS, what if somebody set up an account that says IRS, and the bank would let them do it? Or?
Yes.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Don't give Rick any new
Right.
business ideas.
Let me take some notes here, Mark. Can you give me another idea?
Well, I'll give you another idea, and this is unfortunately.
Rick just found a new source of income.
There are a lot of unsavory people who prepare returns out there as well. And the IRS is trying to crack down on that this year because they have for the first time what's called the PTIN, which in effect I'm required when I sign a tax return to put that on the tax return. Now, if you get a tax return from a preparer and there's no PTIN at the bottom, there's a little box for it on the second page of
What's
the
a
10
PTIN?
footing. It's a number issued by the Internal Revenue Service that in effect it's like a Social Security number.
Right, your driver's license. number.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's, again, that's out there. That's another problem. But if you get a tax return, you pay for it, and there's no PTIN, that's a big problem. So just be careful of that.
But you know, that
There's a lot of scams going
Oh,
on.
huge scams.
There's American Express emails that come through too.
Oh,
Right.
it's amazing. I get like 5 a day on my computer. It's crazy.
Well, but how many people do you have on your Twitter account?
I know.
So you have you have in the almost 100,000 people. So you know your name is out there.
I know.
Be careful also of these rapid refund deals, because most of those are scams out there. Those primarily prey on the poor in the elderly areas.
You mean the $1,000 coupon I'm getting from JCPenney that they keep sending me on the email? It's not real.
Well, why don't you try it and
I
see
never,
what happens.
I never even been inside a JCPenney. I'm wondering how they were giving me $1,000.
Yeah, well, you talk about this, and this is the perfect setup for a scam artist. Now, unfortunately, the Internal Revenue Code provides that the IRS, in effect, distributes welfare checks. Because, for instance, if you happen to be poor and you have a dependent, you will get a refund regardless of whether you pay in tax or not, okay, just because you have a dependent and you're below a certain income level. And those refunds can be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, okay? Now, to someone who's not working, or working, not underworking, shall we say, that is a heck of a lot of money. And usually that money has been spent already before they receive it. So that's why you see a lot of these rapid refunds, and most of them are scams.